ओम सदाशिवसमारंभां शंकराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्. Okay, ready to start, guys?
Yes, Swamiji.
Okay, any questions or clarifications? We saw the sum of the Prithvi and Apaha we saw, earth and water, in terms of the connection between the individual and total. Remember, this is meant for Upasana. Somebody had asked me last time that is Sarvatma Bhava based on only Ishvara? No. If it is only Ishvara, you will get a sense of connectedness. That's a halfway house. That is what he is doing in this verse. To see you are part of the whole, that you are not separate from the whole. That there is a connection between the individual and the total. What is there in the totality is there in the individual as well. Sarvatma Bhava goes one step more. Sarvatma Bhava is about recognizing that you are everything. That is with the understanding of pure consciousness. That you are Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahman, therefore everything. The underlying factor before everything. When you are looking from the standpoint of Ishvara and the individual, it is a connectedness. Therefore, the connectedness is a Upasana that will help you make your mind accept that you are everything. Okay? So, that is the slight difference between the two. Okay. So, building upon this connectedness, remember he is following the old yoga paradigm. Okay. Akasha, Vayu, Agni, Apa, Prithvi. In that, the Prithvi element and the Apaha element we saw. Now, there is a problem in terms of the use of the word element. Because this element, the word element that is being used, is not the element in the way science uses the term. Okay. For example, in water element, science will see that there are two elements, hydrogen and oxygen. Okay. So the way we use the term, actually the term is bhutas, pancha maha bhutas, that which has become and that which will become into the world, modify into the world, manifest into the world. Therefore, pancha bhutas. But when I use the word Panchabhutas, people wonder what is a Panchabhutas. Therefore, what is an English equivalent you don't have? Therefore, some time back, and maybe more than 100 years ago, someone translated using the term elements. Because that term is also used in ancient Greek philosophy. Therefore, we are stuck with the word element for want of any other term. But understand, the element that we talk about here is not in the same sense as the element in science. So we saw in that the cosmic matter, earth meaning matter, tangible matter, okay, which has a certain solidity about it, not fluidity, which is water. So the correspondence of earth and water in the totality and in the individual. This much we saw last time. So now proceeding ahead, okay, Akasha, Vayu, Agni, Apa, Prithvi. So the next one, going in reverse order, will be Agni. Therefore he says that. Okay, these are always common knowledge in those days because they used to do all these practices. Okay, as part of yoga, these practices were there. In fact, you will find these practices are there all over the Orient. In some places preserved, some places forgotten. when it came to pure Vedanta, you don't bother too much about these things because these were meant for getting siddhis, etc. The practices I'm talking about. The idea is the same. The practices were used for siddhis, etc., which, as a student of Vedanta, we are not interested in. Okay? That is not our aim. Our aim is the greatest siddhi of them all, to recognize that I am that infinite being. Therefore, we are not interested in smaller siddhis. Therefore, we don't do all these practices. So, I am not going to go into the details of practices. Okay? That if somebody wants to practice, maybe one-on-one, I may consider that. Okay. Moole tishtati kalagnihi asti madhye cha bhadavaha vaidito agni sushumnayam prithivyo navi mandale. Kalagnihi, that is supposed to be the cosmic fire. Okay, the base of the whole thing, the energy for the whole cosmos. Kalagnihi. Moole tishtati, in the Mooladhara, the root chakra that is there in the tailbone on the perineum. That's the area for it. Therefore, Moole tishtati kalagnihi madhye cha bhadavaha. Okay. Asti madhye cha bhadavaha. Within the bones, there is the energy within the bones, because that energy that produces all your RBC, white BC, WBC, etc. White blood cells, all that is produced there. It says Agnihi madhye, asti madhye cha bhadavaha. Bhadavaha Agni. Okay. Vaidito Agni Sushumnayam. The lightning that's there all over. You see, that is in the Sushumna, between in the main central channel that is there. Prithivyo Nabi Mandale. And the Prithvi, the earthly fire, is there in your Nabi. That's what gives you hunger, thirst, etc. Therefore, just an equation. What is there in the cosmos is there in your body as well. Is there in your shariras. 3 shariras. Sula, Sukshma Sharira. That's all he talks about. Agni doesn't give any practice. Okay. Then after Agni comes Vayu. Dharyante Vayubhir lokaha yata prahanadibhi pranadibhi dasha videhi dharyate Vayubhihi vapuhu. Dharyante Vayubhi lokaha yatha prahanadibhi. The cosmic winds, the cosmic prana, pravana ityadi, which is supposed.
Swamiji?
Yes?
There is one left, Hridi Tishtati Suryagnihi. I have that.
Okay, Suryagnihi. Sorry. Okay.
Hridi Tishtati Suryagnihi.
Yeah. Nakshatrani. Okay. Sorry, I forgot that one verse in between. Okay. Hridi Tishtati Suryagnihi. In the heart is the Suryagnihi, the seat of emotions, etc. Suryagnihi. Kapalet cha Chandramandalam. Your Kapalaha is the moon. That's why the phases of the moon affect your mind. Nakshatrani aparani ahu. Netradi indriyanapi. Okay. Nakshatrani aparana ahu. Nakshatras. Various nakshatras. Okay. Main nakshatras that affect our life on earth. The 28 nakshatras mentioned. Okay, nakshatrani ahu. Okay. Netradin indriyanapi. They are all the sense organs, etc. Eyes, ears, etc. All the luminous thing that gives you information are supposed to be the nakshatras. Again, just a one-on-one. One-on-one. Okay. One-on-one thing. Okay. But when you are doing practices, etc., they all intermingle. Okay. The sun and the moon energies, all of them have to intermingle. Only then the whole thing comes up, because it is one system. It's not separate. Okay? Therefore, like how the cosmic, then the next verse, the 12th verse.
मेरे
The,
फोटो तो नहीं आ रही
any doubt?
वीडियो बंद
If you are chatting at home, please mute the mic. धार्यन्ते वायुभिः लोकाः यथा pravanaadiभिः. How the cosmic prana sustains the lokas, 14 dimensions are sustained by the cosmic prana. Similarly, pranadiभिः are local prana. Pranadiभिः dashavidehi, 10 pranas. Dharyate vayuभिः vapuः. 10 pranas sustain the body. Out of the 10 pranas, 5 are considered main pranas. Okay? Others are upapranas. Okay? So the main pranas he will deal with here. And just mention one or two other pranas. Prapya inda pingale pranaha moola surya swarupataha nasikabhyam bahirgatva liyate dishangule द्विषड अंगुले प्राप्य ईड पिंगले प्राणः मूलात् सूर्य स्वरूपतः from the mooladhara surya swarupatah, the prana which is influenced by the heat of the sun. That means what? In a practice you will have to heat up your mooladhara. That is why the meditation is not complete unless you do the pranayama practices. Meditation on the chakra cannot be done unless you do the pranayama practices. Okay? Therefore, moolat surya swarupataha, the prana which becomes sula swarupa, meaning heated up by your practices, it rises up as energy, as vapor. He says, Prapi inda ida pingalai, the two, this thing, the ida and the pingala nadis in your system. Okay. Nasikabhyam bahirgatva, the energy extends itself through your nostrils outside. Okay. Liyate dishangule, it merges with the cosmic prana after about 12 inches outside, 12 fingers, 12 inches, roughly 10 inches, 12 inches, because that's all your breathing will go normally. Okay. It merges there, he says. That means your individual prana will merge with the cosmic prana. Then you can get it back in. Then he says, Ashtangulena soma atma nadhyabhyam antaravisha moola mutra shukrani apanaha visrajet bahihi. Then the prana that goes out and merges with the cosmic prana, in the form of the moon energy, it comes back, he says. Okay? Ashtangulena somatma, because the moon is supposed to be cooling. So the heated energy that has gone out comes back in as the cooling energy, he says. Nabhyabhyam antaravisha. Nadyabhyam antaravisha. Your breath goes into the lungs, the energy goes into the nadis. And that is the apana vayu. Prana went out. That is why in some places they say prana is outgoing vayu. See, normally prana is what you breathe in, and apana is connected with excretion, including breathing out. But here he takes prana as the outgoing vayu. Somebody has asked me this question. Prana is the outgoing vayu. Why? Because heated up, the energy from the mooladhara is going outside. That is the prana. Therefore, under normal circumstances, prana is what comes in. But when you are doing these practices, prana takes the energy out as well. Okay? Because why? Prana is the upward rising vayu. Therefore, the upward rising vayu, it comes out and goes out. Comes up and goes out. Then Soma Atma Antaravishat. The cooling breath comes in, he says. But that when you are breathing in, normal, subtle breathing, about 8 inches, you draw the thing. So the energy is also drawn in from there. And what does it do? It helps the excretion of things, he says. Mula, Mutra, your feces and urine, etc. and semen, etc. All of them. Okay. Apano visrujed bahihi. Because it is rising upwards, prana, because it goes inside and excretes downwards, apana. Therefore, the basic function doesn't change. Prana is about respiration, apana is about excretion. That doesn't change. Okay? Yeah, that doesn't change. Visrajed bahi.
Swamiji,
Yeah?
why sweat is not given here?
Adi Padat is included.
Okay.
Yeah, Ani na. Mula, Shukra, Ani, sweat. Even they are not mentioned the outgoing breath.
Yeah.
Yeah, exhalation, then all that is included in the Ani Padat. Yeah. And the use of the plural there indicates other things also. अग्निः सोममयो भूत्वः सुषुम्नः आन्दरम् आश्रितः आब्रह्मान्दर मृद्गच्छन् उदानो वर्धते स्वयं. Okay. Then he says, Agni Soma Mayo Bhutvaha. Agni Soma Mayo Bhutva. The sun and the moon joining together. That means, how can the sun and the moon join together? The sun stands for the prana, the pranic energy. Okay? The Surya energy, upward rising energy, the hot energy, and Soma is the cooling energy. Okay? Both of them mixing together in your Swadhisthana chakra, mixing together. Okay? Sushupna Randhra Marshataha. It enters the Sushumna Nadi, the main central Nadi. Enters this. Then Brahma Radhandram Gachan Udano Vartate Swayam. The same energy now activates the Udana, he says. Activates Udana. So the Udana is meant. Now normally in Vedanta we say the Udana Vayu is meant to take, is activated only when your prarabdha is over and the Sukshma Sharira has to be taken out of the system, out of the physical body. True. That is for normal functioning. Normal functioning, for normal human beings, this is what happens. But for the people who practice these things, okay, all over the Orient these practices were there. For those yogis, not that they are abnormal people, because I said normal people do, Udana is activated only at time of death. But for the yogis, etc., okay, yogis, martial artists, Tai Chi practitioners, Qigong practitioners, etc., okay, you deliberately activate the Udana for other things, other siddhis, etc., out of body experiences. All that thing happens with the activation of the Udana. That means the prana and apana, the heat and the cold mix together through the Sushumna, rises upwards, activating the Udana for all these things. He's just talking about the various functions of this. I don't think any of you are going to do any of these practices. Okay? Alright. Okay. Vardate Swayam. Okay. And the same thing happens even at time of death. But there, it is nature taking over and making you do it. Here, you are consciously doing it. That's the only difference. Then Vyapyed Vapushi Vyanaha Bhuta Annarasan Maham Sandurukshanam Samanastu कायाग्ने कुरुते तदा व्यानः व्यापयेद् वपुषी व्यानः व्यापयेद् वपुषी. The whole body is pervaded by vyana. Bhuta anna rasanmaham. Okay, and what is its function? To take the essence, okay, to take the essence of the food that you have consumed and digested. All the energy that is gained from food, energy, nutrients, etc., gained from food, it has to take it to every cell in the body. That's the function of the vyana. And samanastu stando akshanam kayagnehe kurute sadaha. Okay. What is the function of the samana? To keep the body fire going, he says. Samana is associated with your digestion. Always active. Right? Because this body requires food at regular intervals. You may be eating only once in 6 hours or once in 8 hours. 3 meals a day, once in 8 hours. Okay? You may be eating. But that has to be digested and converted into energy, etc. No? Into nutrients, etc. And what is not necessary thrown out. So that function goes on in your belly, stomach, intestines, everything included into it. Okay. Function of the prana. Then he mentioned some of the, he had said 10 pranas. So a couple of the smaller upa-pranas he is mentioning here. Nago hikkaraha, kurmo nimishan vishakarakaha, kshutam karoti krikkaraha, devidato vijambranam. Nagaha hikkaraha. Naga vayu creates hiccups, etc. Kurmaha vayu nimishan umishan karakaha. It opens and closes your eyes, sleep and waking, etc. is controlled by the kurmaha. Shutam karoti krikkaraha. Krikkaraha vayu creates your sneezing, etc. Devadattaha vijambranam. Devadatta. When Devadatta is activated, you will keep yawning, etc. Yawning has a purpose of getting extra oxygen into your system, also of throwing out some of the impurities. Okay, that's part of the Devadatta's job. Thailyam jana dhananjaya kuryat mrutanchapi na munchati. Thailyam dhananjaya kuryat. Okay, Dhananjaya causes your distension. You ate too much. Dhananjaya comes to function and you get a lot of gas in your stomach, etc. Any distension, bloating anywhere in the system is because of Dhananjaya. And he says, Murtam chapi na munchati. Even the dead body doesn't leave because the dead body starts bloating. After a rigor mortis, etc. has happened, after that, okay, it starts bloating. Therefore, he says, these are the 10 Vayu functions. All the cosmic Vayu is functioning in my system. And through energy, etc., is connected to the cosmic energy. Because prana is not just breathing. Prana is energy. Therefore, through prana, the whole cosmic energy and the individual energy is connected. Any questions on this? On the prana aspect? Or is it clear?
Swamiji, just curiosity.
Yeah?
Why the bloating happens to the dead body?
That because of sort of changes that are happening. It is a process of rotting actually.
Achha.
Yeah. I think the doctors here will be able to throw more light. Yeah, it's a process of disintegration.
You know more than a doctor, Swamiji.
No. It's a process of disintegration.
Okay.
Yeah.
Swamiji, what is Pravahana that is mentioned in the verse 12?
What is the?
Pravahana
That's the cosmic energy. The cosmic energy that sustains the dimensions, etc. So, like that, there are a few vayus mentioned as cosmic, few aspects of the cosmic energy. That's one aspect of the cosmic energy. Because look at it, you are kept alive by the cosmic energy, really speaking. Whether you know it or not, you accept it or not. Okay? If the energy flow into your system is cut off, the cosmic energy flow into your system cut off, you will wither away and die. And if that energy is enhanced, you will survive without food and drink also. Like the people sitting in samadhi, they survive just on the pure energy. Now, science will not accept that. But science will accept hibernation in the polar bear and other animals, okay? They hibernate. Yeah. Agreed, they lose weight, etc. So, most yogis sitting in samadhi also will lose weight. Therefore, want to lose weight effortlessly, sit in samadhi. Your stored up fat will be used up. But if you are really in samadhi, your calorie requirements also will be reduced. Normal calorie requirement for a sedentary adult woman is about 1500-1600 calories. For a man, 200-300 calories more. In samadhi, they will be reduced to about 300-400 calories. So, how much are you going to lose weight per day? 250-300 calories. Breathing will be once in half an hour or 15 minutes. Then how are you being sustained? Purely by the cosmic energy. That's why they say they did some tantric rituals, etc., and the person died. He withered away and died. What did that ritual do? It cut off the cosmic energy from you. That's all it did. Voodoo, etc. That's all it is doing. It's cutting off the cosmic energy from you. By some ritual, it's blocking it up. Now, whether it's true or not, etc., let's not get into a debate on that, because that is not the purpose of this. The purpose here is only to show the connection between the individual and the total. Nothing more. Nothing more. So, let us stick to that. Okay. But if there are any, if your curiosity is blocking you from going ahead, ask, I will answer. I'll throw enough light not to confuse you all, just to make it okay. You can move ahead. And as I said, anyone reading about, see what happens with net and things like that, irresponsible people will put up a lot of information on the net. And people will start practicing that. Wrong thing to do. Wrong thing to do. Because when you practice these type of pranayamas, etc., these are the advanced pranayamas. When you do things like this, it requires monitoring by somebody who has walked the path before. By your guru is necessary. Because if it's not monitored, if the subtle pranayamas and meditation goes wrong, your mind will go crazy. If the harder pranayamas go wrong, your organs will be destroyed. Your health, instead of improving, will actually suffer. Okay? There are actually pranayamas that can make you very physically powerful. That's what you see in today's world. You will see the demonstration of that by the Shaolin monks, the Wudang masters, etc. In the field of martial arts, you will see that. How they become so powerful. It's all because of pranayama. Tapping into the energy, it is not physical. It's not physical. Yeah. Because if you look at them, they are not huge guys. That's our gym characters. They are huge guys. Yeah. That's purely physical. What they do is purely physical. But these characters do much more. The Shaolin monks, Wudang masters, even our older martial artists that I have met, some of them I have met, Kalaripayattu experts. Okay. All of them, they do it by tapping into the energy. Okay. Very powerful people they are. Just by that. Yeah. And you do these practices, physically you'll be 20 years younger than what you are physiologically. You may have signs of aging in terms of graying of hair or a wrinkle or something like that. You may have that. Unless you do a lot of Shirasasana, then if you do a lot of Shirasasana, then your hair doesn't get black that, it doesn't get white that fast. It remains black quite some time. Okay. But when you're doing the energy work, you don't do too much of Shirasasana because you don't want any of the toxins that are released to go up to your head through the blood and the lymphatic systems. So then you won't do Shirasasana. So much you won't do. Up or down poses you won't do so much. Because when you do energy work, toxins also get released into the bloodstream, which has to be removed through your apana vayu. So for that you need to drink a lot of water to support it. So these type of systems that are there have to be practiced under a master, under somebody who knows the thing. Don't look it up on the net and things like that and say I will practice it. If at all you want to look up the net and do something, go to sevangi.com because it's run by Christopher Fernandez, the master in Qigong, and he will do only those things in public. He'll put only those things in public which will not create damage, which you can do on your own if you want. That will not create damage. Some of it, which is more serious, advanced practices, are password protected, only meant for his students to access, just in to revise something, etc. Therefore, be careful when you're in your curiosity, when you try to experiment these things. Okay, ready to go ahead with the next Vayu? With the next what you call element.
Yes, Swamiji.
Yes, sir.
So what is left is only what now? Akasha. Because Vayu, Agni, Apa, Prithvi we are done. So Akasha. आकाशः बहिराप्य अंतराक्ष आकाशं पृच्छति. ओके, आकाश बहिराप्य अंतरावकाशं पृच्छति. What is akashah? That which gives avakashah, that which accommodates, okay, within and without the body, outside the body, inside the body, both, he says. There is enough space inside the body for you to eat and drink and things like that. The body itself is accommodated by the outside space. Inside the space accommodates everything that you put in. Outside space accommodates your body itself, and it goes in and through the body. That's all he says about Akasha. Okay? You don't do anything with Akasha. You can't do anything with Akasha. You can't work with space. You can work in space. Okay? Okay. Okay. Then he goes ahead further, says चंद्रार्कौ कालनेत्रो प्राणापानो शरीरिणां साक्षिः पुरुषा इत्येवं मृत्युरष्टमिदं वपुः. चंद्रार्कौ कालनेत्रौ. Chandraha and Arkaha, the sun and the moon, moon and the sun, okay, Kalanetrau, okay, are the measures of time, he says, are that which regulate time. Prana, Pano, Shariranam. Look at it. Your idea of time is measured by the sun and the moon. Correct? Whether you are taking it in terms of day and night, solar years, lunar years, etc. All measurement of time is based on the sun and the moon. And then the sun and the moon becomes prana and apana in your system, which you have seen earlier. Sharirinam prana apano. Therefore, even in the sun and the moon outside, there is connection with what is inside, he says. And what are you? Sakshih Purusha Ityevam Murti Ashtakamidam Vupuhu. And you are nothing but the Sakshi who objectifies this eightfold universe. Akasha, Vayu, Agni, Apa, Prithvi, Sun and the Moon. This forms the body of Ishvara. And in that Ishvara's body, you are included. Correct? To put it in simpler ways, in the cosmic form, physical, your physical body is included. In the cosmic energy system, your energy system is included. Cosmic mind, your mind is included. Cosmic knowledge, your little knowledge is included. Cosmic ignorance, Maya Shakti, your ignorance is included. Where are you? I am the one who objectifies the whole thing. Sakshi. I am the one who objectifies the whole thing. Can you see now what he is doing? At one level is connectedness. Now from connectedness he is moving towards the Nirguna, the Sakshi, the witness. You are the one who is seeing the whole connectedness of the whole thing. He has taken a big jump here. Up to now, all that he was doing was to show how Akasha, Vayu, Agni, Apa, Prithvi makes up the cosmos and you are included into it. And then in this one small verse, okay, Sakshi Purusha Ityevam. If we say Ishvara, Ishvara also objectifies his eightfold this. His own whole body is objectified. His cosmic mind is objectified. Maya Shakti is objectified. All knowledge objectified. And you are the Sakshi, who is what? Objectifying the same thing. Are you objectifying anything different? Subject-object relationship is the same. And what is the nature of the Sakshi? One Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahman. Pure consciousness. No difference. Therefore, you start from your sense of duality, differences in the world. That's how you are functioning. Therefore, Karma Yoga, etc. You start with the differences. Then you understand Ishvara, connectedness, and then understand oneness. It's from duality to connectedness to oneness. Or if you want to call it, from Dvaita to Vishishta Dvaita to Advaita. It's all the same. It's one awareness alone that is there. So, the duality is your starting point. Connectedness is what will help you understand that oneness. Therefore, Ishvara Jnanam and contemplation of Ishvara helps you feel that connectedness with everything. And that will help your mind able to understand and accept that oneness. It's important to see that in all your bhakti and your practices, you don't get stuck anywhere. That's also important to see. Because Dvaita Bhakti is the starting point. Okay? And that Bhakti has various forms. That's why they talk about 9 forms of Bhakti, etc., etc., etc. Fine. Why 9 forms? You can have 100 forms. 9 just categorized. Broad categories. That's all. Therefore, you start. Yeah. Whether it is your Bhakti expresses. Bhakti is your emotional response to your understanding of Ishvara. Therefore, whether it comes as pujas or bhajans or seva or anything, it doesn't matter. Starting point. Then to feeling that connectedness of Ishvara. You don't see yourself as separate from it. Then to understand that oneness, that there is only Ishvara. There is only I, the consciousness, nothing else exists. That's how the whole thing proceeds. Any questions on this? Because it's an important point here. Any questions, any clarifications?
Swamiji, what is Vishishta Advaita? You said Dvaita to Vishishta Advaita and then Advaita.
See, Vishishta Advaita is when you see that you are part of the whole. Vishishta Advaita was a school of philosophy set up by Ramanuja. Okay? Ramanuja Acharya, a great scholar. He found, see, in the interpretation of the Shastra, the commentary on the Shastra, put it, Vedic tradition always had teachers. Okay? That's why we always say, na, Sadashiva Samarambha, starting from Sadashiva himself, the Lord himself. Therefore, that Upanishadic tradition, Tattvamasi is Upanishadic. Therefore, it is Advaitic. Therefore, the Upanishad message is Advaita. Not only that, even Pramana wise, okay, the Pramana has to give you something unique. Apurvata has to be there in every Pramana. Dvaita, Vishishta, Dvaita, connectedness, etc., you can gain from other Pramanas. Therefore, if Veda is a Pramana, then it has to give you Advaita Jnanam. Only that is the uniqueness of it. Apurvata is only there. Therefore, Advaita is the message of the Upanishad. Non-duality. That is how Vyasa interpreted the sutras. The first analysis was by Vyasa in terms of the sutras. Not that the teaching was not going on before that. All the rishis were before Vyasa. Okay? Vyasa was about 3000 BC, roughly. Okay? The Upanishadic tradition is much older. Yeah, much older. Minimum another 3000 years ago. Yeah. Or even earlier, because one of the rishis was supposed to have got fire from the gods to earth. Therefore, we are talking about the discovery of fire by human beings. But he was already a rishi. The Advaitic Jnana was there. That means if you are combining the modern theories of science and Vedanta, that means Vedanta was there in prehistoric times. When civilization yet had to evolve into from the fire age, stone age, etc. But rishis were there. Vedantic Jnanam was there. Advaitic Jnanam was there. Very peculiar if you look at it. That's why I say, to understand Advaita, you don't need a great education in science and philosophy. Science, economics, etc. develops your mind, therefore it's easier to understand certain things. That's all, nothing more than that. You don't need it. You can do without it. For those who are becoming teachers, I'll advise them to study science, study other disciplines, so that they can communicate better, because the people who come to them are from this exposure. Science, economics, liberal arts, etc. They come from this exposure, so it helps them. So you can help them better if you know some of these things. That's a different thing. But the first teaching, Advaita, Advaitic Jnana. That is the message, central message of the Upanishad. It talks about other things also. That will help you. Sarvado akhilam karma jnane parisamapyate. It all has to end up in knowledge. All that you do has to end up in knowledge. Therefore, Advaita jnane eva parisamapyate. Advaitam satyam. That's what it is. Then, a few thousand years after Vyasa had done the Brahma Sutras, the great Acharya, Adi Shankara, Bhagavad Shankara, wrote his commentaries, put down the whole teaching which was available as an oral tradition with the Sampradaya with the masters of the tradition, Acharyas of the tradition. he put it down in writing called the Bhashya as a reference point for future teachers and students both. As a reference point. The Bhashya is a reference point. You can't go wrong. If you are having a doubt of interpretation, look into that so that you're clear, no problems. So, now they say Shankara's Advaita. No. Shankara's Advaita Acharya, no doubt. He wrote down the teaching tradition, no doubt. But Advaita is from the Upanishads. He didn't create Advaita. He didn't start the tradition of Advaita. He was blessed by the tradition of Advaita and he formed a shining link, a giant among the teachers of Advaita. I have found some speakers talking about Shankara as the creator of modern India and things like that. Nonsense, okay? I don't accept that. With all my respect for Shankara, I wear these robes proudly, honoring Shankara, Bhagavad-pada, honoring that. But I don't think Shankara was the creator of modern India. Because the Mahabharata war happened 3000 years before Shankara. Minimum. Could be more. Mahabharata meaning the great war about Bharat. The great story of Bharata is called the Mahabharata. Therefore, Bharata as a country existed long before. From Vedic times, Mero Darshanaya Parshve, Bharata Varshe, Aryavarte, in the land of the Aryas called Bharata. They means the indigenous population of the country were called Aryas, not Dravidians. Because they were straightforward people. What you see is what you get. Therefore, the Advaita tradition and India both, not India, Bharat, okay? Yeah. Vedic times onwards. Shankara was a great champion of that. He met debaters from other schools of thought, debate, discussion, etc., clarified their thinking for them, brought knowledge to all of them who were thinking that they were separate from the Advaita tradition. He made them understand that Advaita is the basis for everything. That is what Shankara did. So some couple of centuries after Shankara, there is a great scholar born, a great teacher born called Ramanuja. For whatever reason, probably his compassion towards people who couldn't understand Vedanta, who couldn't understand the Advaita standpoint. What to do? What to do for those people? Should we leave them out? Kick them out? No, we need not. Out of compassion for them, he brought in the ideas of Vishishta Advaita, a partial Advaita. That means Ishvara is everything. You are not Ishvara, but you are part of Ishvara. What we talk in Vedanta as connectedness, he brought it out as a separate school of philosophy called Visishta Advaita. I don't think he himself wanted to make it a separate school. He was a teacher who probably helped his students like that. But the followers created a separate school. Vishishta Advaitins, followers of Ramanuja. But I am sure there were many people who couldn't understand that also. Even part and whole they couldn't understand. So a couple of centuries later, another Acharya was born called Madhavacharya. He said, yes, whatever you think is right, it is Dvaita. You and God are separate. You and God will never become the same. What is separate will always remain separate. Therefore, all you can do is bhakti. Have bhakti for that. It will work. Why it will work? Because through bhakti, you will evolve a bit and come to understand Vedanta in time. This lifetime or next lifetime. But Dvaita can be a strong conditioning. Therefore, to get free from that conditioning is not easy. It's not Not easy for anyone to get free from your conditioning of Dvaita and understand Advaita. Not free. Then if you have an entrenched philosophy of Dvaita, it will make it more difficult. But he didn't want to leave out anyone. Therefore, those who couldn't understand Advaita, he said, okay, don't worry. Go, do your bhakti, do your this, do your worship. Let God bless you. Because I cannot take care of you. I can't do anything with you. Therefore, pray to Ishvara. Ishvara Anagrahena. You will grow enough. Some Viveka Vairagya will set in and you will be able to understand Advaita. So these are, now when you say Vedanta, the scholars talk about these three systems. These three systems are talked about. Okay?
Okay, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I also have one more question.
Yeah, sure.
Can I ask?
Yeah?
We connect to Ishvara, of course, with bhakti when you understand the order. But that oneness you understand only when you study, you come to Shastras and you know that Ishvara is the both material and intelligent cause, Tattvamasi. So that is when you actually understand that you are one with Ishvara. There's no, and then you move to, you understand that it's Nirguna Brahman, Saguna Brahman, and then Nirguna Brahman. Is that correct?
You can put it like that. It's a little bit categorical the way you're putting it. As though they are three separate entities. They are not three separate entities. Okay? You understand Saguna Brahman, Ishvara. One second. Listen now. You understand Ishvara, Saguna Brahman first as the Abhinna Nimitta Upadana Karana. Correct? And
Yes.
upasanas like this will give you a sense of connectedness, which makes your mind ready to understand Tattvamasi or Brahman as Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahman. The same Brahman that you took as Ishvara, is nothing but Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahman. That means Ishvara is Brahman manifest as the world with respect to himself is nothing but pure consciousness. I am a human being, a teacher right now, manifestation. As myself, I am nothing but pure consciousness. If this can be there with an individual, the same is there with the total. Therefore, Sagunam and Nirgunam are not two separate things. Where the Saguna is, there the Nirgunam Brahman is. The Swarupa of Sagunam Brahman is Nirgunam Brahman. The Swarupa of Ishvara is Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahman. His form is the whole universe. So all that you saw in this verse is the manifestation of the form. What is he? Sakshi, the witness. What is the content of the witness? Satyam Jnanam Anantam. Is that clear?
Yes.
Yeah. That's how you have to understand it. Otherwise, you will be understanding it in a very limited fashion. Okay? Categorically, as both being separate. So, Dvaita is separate, Vishishta Dvaita is separate, Advaita is separate. See, for an Advaitin, he can say, yes, correct. Vishishta Advaita is from the standpoint of Ishvara connectedness. You can accept that. Dvaita is your starting point, that's how everyone has to start. So, the Advaitin has a larger perspective of things. Larger perspective, he is not confused. He knows where to put in what. He is not confused with any system. If you understand Advaita well, you are not confused with any system. Why? Because you know where to put what in. You see the role of everything. Not a problem. Reverse may not always be true. The Dvaitin will get upset if you say God and you are one and the same. For him it's a blasphemy. Yeah, for him it's blasphemy. How can it be? The Vishishadvaitin will modify the statement. Yes, 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 we are part of God. Yeah. So that is where the issue comes. Therefore, in this verse, he is dealing predominantly with the connectedness. Why? It's a halfway house to understanding your everything. Connectedness first, then you find your everything.
Swamiji?
Yeah?
One
Shoot.
question, Swamiji.
Yeah?
You explained very beautifully about this Advaita, then Dvaita, and then Vishishta Advaita up to the Madhavacharya.
Hmm.
What about Vallabhacharya? Where does he
Okay.
one can put it?
Vallabhacharya is a school called Shuddha Dvaita. Okay? Because the Vedantin, the Advaitin took the world as Mithya, at the same time the Advaitin says the world is nothing but a manifestation of Ishvara, but Mithya. Vallabhacharya said, no, that's not true. Okay? Again, this is meant for the Bhakta, this is meant for the people who can't understand Advaita. Okay? He said, no, Ishvara is also real, world is also real. Because the world is a body of Ishvara, therefore that is also real. Therefore he said, we are more Advaitin than the Advaitins because we take both as real. Ishvara also is real, world is also real. World is not different from Ishvara. Therefore world is real. Therefore we call ourselves Shuddha Advaita. Really speaking, if you look at the whole practice, it is Shuddha Dvaita. Pure duality. Because how can you take the world as real and understand you are non-dual? Therefore, Vallabhacharya is a highly bhakti-oriented form. Very bhakti-oriented. At the same time, there is playing a lot of attention on rituals, pujas and things like that. There were some teachers called Dikshit, etc. in Bombay itself. It's popular among Gujaratis mainly, and some Maharashtrians also have got involved in that. But bhakti oriented. Yeah, Dvaita oriented actually, even though they call it Shuddha Dvaita. Clear about that?
Yes, Swamiji.
Yeah. Now see, I can dismiss Dvaita Acharyas saying they didn't know. I can take a hard stand. Because we are going by what they have written. What they have written is all this. Therefore they didn't know. I can take a handstand like that. Nobody can say I am wrong. But I am kind. I respect all the acharyas. I am kind. I respect all the acharyas. And say their intention behind saying this was like this. Probably they are people who knew the truth. And the intention was to help masses who couldn't understand the truth. Okay? I take that stand. It's fine. But this statement, if a Shuddha Advaitin hears, he will get upset. Of course, we understand the truth better than you. That's what his standpoint will be, which is okay. But this is the maximum I can do in terms of validating that school. I can't validate more than that. This much I can validate. That it's used so that you can evolve and grow and understand the truth. But some people can get upset with that. Exactly like the champion who sat in many of my camps and he got upset because I said yoga is a preparation for Vedanta. Yoga is a preparation for understanding the truth. I made a statement like that. He got upset. What can I do with that? Let him get upset. Or kya karenge? What else to do? Yeah. No, yoga also leads to union with God, etc. etc. Now what do you tell when you see that? Can't do anything about it. Let them be. Say a prayer for them and leave them. Next lifetime. Their bhakti will have fruit. So in next lifetime, they will get more exposure to Advaita and understand things. So, that's where the whole picture stands. Okay. Then he makes a statement here. I will touch upon it and clarify it more in the things to come. Because yoga is preparation. The next whole section is about how you use yoga as a preparation for mastering your mind to understand Vedanta. Very beautifully said. Okay? So before that he says one thing. Manaskam idam yogi sevamanah upasanam ashtangir yoga yukta samanaskam sagacchati. सह अमनस्कं तु गच्छति. ओके, युक्तः सः समनस्कं सः अमनस्कं तु गच्छति. There is a small error there. Okay, समनस्कम idam yogi sevamana upasana. This yogi who is doing all this upasana, okay, ashtanga yoga yukta, along with the eightfold path of yoga, it is called samanaska yoga, because you are dealing with your mind. That yogi who does these practices, etc., and of course exposed to Vedanta, that's understood why, because after exposure to the Vedanta in the first 8 verses, he is talking about the 9th verse. Therefore, that exposure to Vedanta understood. Okay, such yogi who is dealing with the mind, etc., amanaskam sagacchati. Okay? He will understand what is there even when the mind is not there. He will understand what is there even when the mind is not there. The reality behind the mind, or if you want to use that expression, the reality beyond the mind. The reality beyond the thoughts, the reality beyond the mind. He will understand, he says. Why? Because his mind is ready now enough to understand. His mind is ready to understand. Manasa eva viditavya. Okay. Manasa eva jnatavya. Through the mind alone, you have to understand what is beyond the mind. Because what is beyond the mind is there in and through the mind also. Since what is there beyond the mind is in and through the mind, you can understand it. If what is beyond the mind is beyond, not here, you will never understand it because beyond the mind. But what is beyond the mind is there in and through the mind. The consciousness which is beyond the mind also exists in and through the mind. In fact, the mind is nothing but an expression of consciousness. Therefore, in a refined mind, a mind refined by the upasana, by the Ashtanga practice, etc., mind refined by that is subtle enough to understand the teaching. Is subtle enough to understand the teaching. That's why he's talking about it as amanaskam, etc. So somebody else will ask me the question, what is samanaska yoga and amanaska yoga? Okay, amanaska yoga is Vedanta, understanding Vedanta. Okay, good way of putting it. Maybe next yoga festival I'll speak on that. Okay, getting a topic now from here. Okay, clear up to now? Any questions?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay, so next class we will see how yoga, etc., is, and the phalam of yoga, etc., what happens to your physical system, mind, etc., all that also he talks about. Okay? Very elaborately he talks about, because yoga practice was very indigenous to our system. Okay? Whether you are a Vedantin or a whatever discipline you are following, whatever system of thought you are following, everyone practices yoga. Everyone practices yoga. Why? Because everyone required a body and mind that could understand things. Therefore, everyone had yoga. Everyone practiced yoga. Yoga became the base. The default exercise module was yoga. And there are, people nowadays feel that no, you cannot develop strength, etc., through yoga. I have experimented enough, okay, to know that lot of strength and fitness can also be developed through yoga if you put in all the energy practices along with it. Okay. physical power can also be developed. But you have to those
Certainly.
modified practices are not very often taught. That's the only problem. In a yoga class, they are not taught because yoga is presented as a gentle, nurturing, healing exercise. That is the main focus. And today's focus on yoga is just physical health, weight loss, etc. That's the unfortunate part. The traditional yoga had a great setup to it, great thing to it. Yeah. But that we will see some of it at least as we go further. Good place to stop. Om Tat Sat.